Hello, you're watching ERi-TV with me, Bersabe Taghla. Welcome to English News Broadcast. Let us start with the major headlines for today. One COVID-19 positive patient from hospital in the Central Region has recovered and has been discharged. Tour of inspection conducted to development sites in Galeb Samson and Sabah region. The Israeli forces raid leaves over 50 Palestinians injured. And Japan's greenhouse gas emissions fell to a record low of 5.1%. On your local news, we have an announcement from the Ministry of Health. One patient who has been receiving medical treatment in hospital in the Central Region has recovered fully and has been discharged from the facility. The total number of recovered patients has accordingly increased to 9,627, while the number of deaths stands at 103. The total number of confirmed cases in the country to date stands at 9,733. Ministry of Health, Asmara, April 15, 2022. The governor of Ansaba region, Ambassador Abdullah Musa, conducted tour of inspection to Galeb subzone on 14 April with the view to observe the situation of social service provision institutions and the progress of development programs. The objective of the tour of inspection that covered the administrative areas of Kuruh, Aibaba, and Mehlab was to encourage water and soil conservation activities as well as to observe the situation of the social service provision institutions and discussed with concerned bodies on addressing the challenges the institutions are facing. At a meeting held with residents of the administrative areas, the governor called for conducting community-based development programs, renovation of roads that have been difficult for vehicles, as well as for community initiative to construct microdams with a view to alleviate potable water shortage. The residents also called for establishment of a high school in their area, construction of a dam with a view to alleviate potable water problem, as well as for missionary support in the renovation of the road linking Mehlab with Kuruh. The tour of inspection was attended by Secretary of the PFDJ branch in the Ansaba region and Director General of Construction Development, as well as area administrators and heads of agriculture offices. Youth Workers Organization in Haggas subzone held its fourth Congress on 5 April. At the Congress by the chairman of the organization, Mr. Ta'ame Malu, presented 4 years activity report on the developmental, economic, sports, and political activities vis-a-vis the challenges encountered and called on members to reinforce participation and contribution for better outcome. Commending the role and contribution of the members of the organization, Mr. Azazi Barakhatab, head of the National Union of Eritrean Youth and Students branch in the Ansaba region, expressed the deep meaning of the initiative the 45 youth workers took each to support family of martyrs in Habero subzone and called on others to follow their noble example. Highlighting on the exemplary activities the youth workers are exerting, the heads of political and organizational affairs at the PFDJ branch in the Ansaba region, Mr. Saleh Ibrahim and Mr. Ismail Mohammed Noor, called for reinforced participation in the effort to support disadvantaged citizens, families of martyrs, as well as in the implementation of charted out development drives. At the event, the head of the National Union of Eritrean Youth and Students and Secretary of the PFDJ branches in Haggas subzone delivered messages of solidarity. The Congress also elected 15-member executive committee and expressed readiness to strengthen participation and contribution in the national affairs. On your last local news, the Ministry of Education branch in Areza subzone, in cooperation with the Sports Commission branch in the subzone, organized Student Sports Week. The objective of the Sports Week that was participated by students from 4 junior and 2 high schools was to enable students identify their talents and share experiences among each other. At the conclusion event of the Sports Week, Mr. Tasfahi Wetwelda Gergis, head schools in the subzone, commended the teachers, area administrators, and partners for the support they made during the organization of the Sports Week. At the event, awards have been handed over to winners of various competitions. Dear viewers, we'll be back with your global news after the short break. Welcome back. Israeli police have raided the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem, with medics saying that at least 59 Palestinians have been injured in the violence that followed. The Islamic endowment that runs the site said Israeli police entered in force before dawn as thousands of worshippers were gathered at the mosque for early morning prayers. Videos online showed Palestinians throwing rocks and police firing tear gas and stun grenades. Others showed worshippers barricading themselves inside the mosque amid what appeared to be clouds of tear gas. The Palestinian Red Crescent Emergency Service said it evacuated 59 wounded people to hospitals. The endowment said one of the guards at the site was shot in the eye with a rubber bullet. Israeli police claimed that they entered the compound to disperse and push back the crowd after a group of Palestinians began throwing rocks towards the nearby Jewish prayer space of the Western Wall. Tens of thousands of Palestinians were expected to gather at the Al-Aqsa Friday prayers as Muslims observe the holiday month of Ramadan, which this year coincides with the Jewish Passover holiday and Christian Holy Week, bringing thousands of pilgrims and other visitors to Jerusalem. On your last global news, according to government figures released today, Japan's greenhouse gas emissions fell to a record low in the financial year that ended March 2021 as a result of slower industrial activities amid the pandemic and wider use of renewable energy. The 5.1% decline marks 7 consecutive years of falls. Emissions for 2020 and 2021 fell to the equivalent of 1.15 billion tons of carbon monoxide from 1.21 billion tons the previous year. Revised data from the Environment Ministry shows that the 2020 and 21 level was the lowest since 1990 and 91, when Japan began compiling data on greenhouse gas emissions. Japan, the world's 5th biggest carbon emitter, raised its climate goal in April 2021, pledging to trim emissions by 46% from 2013 levels by 2030 instead of its previous target of 26%. If this is achieved, 2030 emissions will be 0.76 billion tons. The 2020 and 21 figure represents a reduction of 18.4% from 2013 levels. Masayuki Koiwa, a director at the ministry, told reporters that to achieve the 2030 target and the 2050 goal of carbon neutrality, there is the need to maximize the use of renewable energy and that the ministry would promote solar power to meet the 2030 target because that method of generation could be applied quickly. It is to be remembered that Japan's emissions surged after the 2011 nuclear disaster at Fukushima, which led to the closure of nuclear power plants and boosted reliance on fossil fuels, which have turned lower since a peak of 1.41 billion tons hit in the years of 2013 and 14. You're still watching ERi-TV, dear viewers, and now recap of the major headlines for today. One COVID-19 positive patient from hospital in the central region has recovered and has been discharged. Tour of inspection conducted to development sites in Geleb subzone, Nansava region. The Israeli forces raid leaves over 50 Palestinians injured. And Japan's greenhouse gas emissions fell to a record low of 5.1%. Dear viewers, that was it for today. Thanks for watching.